Hi, everyone. My name is Abboud, and I'm a sales engineer at Looker, a data analytics software company. We recently became part of Google Cloud in March of this year, and I'm here to talk to you today about how our platform can help empower people and organizations through the smarter use of data. So what I'll do is I'll start with a high-level view on where we see the BI and analytics industry moving, talk you through some customer examples and Looker architecture before moving on to a quick product demo. So at a high level today, there are about 2,000 customers and companies partnering with Looker to harness the power of their data in order to empower their people to drive successful business outcomes and deliver better experiences for their customers. But when we talk about how these customers are using data, we're not talking about the conventional understanding of data analytics. Really what we've seen is that spending and focus on traditional query and reporting BI environments has actually been shifting dramatically to analytics integrated into business operations and digital solutions. So, really it's about how can data not become just something we analyze in reports, but actually something that can be infused into everyday business processes to make employees smarter, to optimize operations, or potentially drive new streams of revenue. Thus expanding the idea of traditional business intelligence into the modern era of what we call data experiences. So what are data experiences? Now, when we talk about data experiences, really this can represent any number of ways in which companies are driving value from data. That could be to reduce costs or mitigate risk, potentially add value by increasing revenues or optimizing spend, or even maybe external economic value by monetizing data and generating new value streams. What the Looker platform itself offers is a unified surface to access the truest, most up-to-date version of your company's data, architecture for which we'll go into in a little bit. But once you have this unified view into your business, the idea is that the platform is built in a way that you can choose or design data experiences that assure the people, as well as the systems that you use, get data delivered to them in a way that makes most sense for their needs. And there are a few examples of this that I'll walk through. And the first and most obvious is modern BI. So Looker's architecture is actually built in a way that even within the BI framework, and we'll walk through this today, everyone has access to real-time data and regardless of technical ability, are able to take action on the insights that they find. So Sunrun is a really great example. One of our customers, they're actually bringing all of their company's data together to get a unified view of their customer. And then once they have that, they now have built self-service analytics for every part of their business, whether it's managing installations for new solar panels to making sure customer service teams are running at the highest quality of customer support, to also sharing reports with their external stakeholders, and really everything you'd expect in a modern BI platform in a way that's leveraging the modern data technology stack. But BI and business intelligence is really just one data experience. And what we're seeing today is companies are actually starting to use data in very innovative ways and starting to integrate it in every part of their business in ways that go beyond, classic reports and dashboards. So when you think about these integrated insights, really it's about getting data into the tools where people spend their most time. So at Stripe, for example, look at dashboards that are showcasing product usage data, that's all, first-party data, are actually embedded right into Salesforce. So sales reps have more context while they're on their customer calls right next to their Salesforce information. And again, as I mentioned, this can really be done in any third-party application. So it might be integrating insights into your Slack channels or embedding data into really any other third-party tools to really ensure that people are getting data into the places where they spend their most time versus needing to force users and employees to come to other applications for their data needs. And that's the integrated insights piece, but with access to this fresh and accurate data, it's also really easy to optimize workflows. And what we mean by that is triggering real-time operational actions in the other tools that you use as data changes. So, Sales Law, for example, they're actually using Looker to manage churn with automated alerts and email follow-ups for success managers based on changing customer health. So they actually built a customer health tracker that not only notifies the success team when health is low, but it'll also populate emails within their engagement platform programmatically so that churn management is basically fully automated. In a similar vein, Future Play, it has a really interesting use case where they've actually built a fully automated AI-powered bid bot that optimizes their ad spend by automatically adjusting bids in the various ad platforms based on real-time performance. And really all this comes down to Looker's direct access to all the data and the ability to send webhooks of data to other tools to trigger operational actions, either based on a user's manual input or programmatically as things change with the data. And these can really be to any other web-based third-party tools that you use or even in-house tools. And then finally, and this one's really interesting as well, is that we actually see organizations delivering data-driven experiences by building full-blown data products like custom applications and then monetizing their data to their external customers. So leveraging Looker's API and embed capabilities to build external-facing analytic products for their customers, so that they can actually see how essentially their data is performing. Maybe I'm an e-commerce company and I'm exposing data back out to my brands to see how their brands are performing, or really anything in that vein. At the end of the day, these are all just some examples. I think that the main point to come away with is that the Looker platform is built in a way that is going to allow you to very easily build really any data experience on top of all the data that you're collecting today. Now, how do we do that? Really, Looker's ability to do this comes down to three main technology pillars, all built in a way that hopefully is able to leverage modern advances today and in the future in technology and in data. So the first one comes down to Looker's in-database architecture. So instead of forcing you to take data out of your database and put it into custom applications, Looker's actually going to connect directly to the underlying database, whether it's an on-premise database or a database in the cloud, connecting to a data lake via SQL engine or a data virtualization tool. Looker connects to the data where it lives and actually leverages that backend with the runtime engine, allowing you to leverage the huge performance gains that come with the newer cloud databases or the cheaper and faster on-premise databases, so that you're getting data fast, but also so that you have access to all the real-time data versus still data that you're taking out of the database when you need it. And you have access to all the data, not just some subset that you pulled in for a particular use case. That allows you that 360-degree view that is really necessary for most of these analytics use cases. And of course, from a security perspective, you have much more control of what is happening to the data when you know it's staying in one place versus shifting it all around the organization. Once you now have this way to connect to all the data that you're accessing, the next question then becomes, okay, how can we ensure that users and applications are accessing it in a way that's governed, that's correct, that's going to allow maybe non-technical users to ask their own questions, even if they may not understand the data. And this is where the second piece comes in, and probably the most important, which is Looker's semantic modeling layer. And really what it is, it's just a collection of text files in which we're basically separating the physical definition of data as it is in the database to this virtual layer where we're basically defining a data dictionary of all your business logic and relationships that Looker is going to use to run and generate SQL on the fly. So as an end user, when I come and click on fields and start to build reports, Looker is actually going to translate my front-end interactions into the most appropriate SQL for me to get the information I need. So you can ensure that everyone is using the same definitions, that there's one easy place to maintain and propagate new changes out to everywhere where data is being used, and non-technical users have much more flexibility in the types of questions and analyses they can run because Looker is actually going to leverage that one data model to build those queries for them. And this model is, as we'll go in a little bit deeper, it's built with software development practices in mind, it's built with version control, and built in a way that multiple developers can work on it and test things out at the same time without ever breaking that production environment that users are actually accessing. And then finally, and this is down to that data experiences piece, we now have a way to securely and in a governed way access real-time data, which of course is going to be great for the BI piece, but as we've been talking about, we want you to be able to leverage this architecture to really build any data experience you want, and that's where we see people moving. And that's where we focus really on this API-first extensibility, where as a platform, we've actually exposed our entire API, whether it's our scheduler, our downloader, the ability to manage users or roles, the ability to manage the model or query data is provided to you so you can very quickly and easily build these new data experiences, whether it's these alerting mechanisms, these operational actions, or full-blown custom applications. So that's the high-level architecture. I should point out as well, Looker is fully dedicated to supporting a flexible multi-cloud architecture as part of GCP. So, we can host on GCP, but we understand that not everyone is at the same part of the journey within modernizing their data stack. So we can really host on any cloud of your choice, or even host on-premise as well. And that goes for hosting a Looker application or actually connecting to your databases as well. Cool. So with that, we can jump right here into the product demo. So what I'll do is I'll actually just share my screen here. And I will walk you through So I just shared my screen here, and I'll give you a quick view into some of these data experiences and some of the things that we're talking about here. So I'll probably spend most of the time today within the Looker application and showing how just within the BI platform, users can leverage real-time data, ask their own questions, and take action on some of the insights that they're getting directly from the tool. But I really want to emphasize this idea that anything you see here today in the internal application can be infused into your external workflows and external applications as well. So as a quick example, we talked about potentially having a Salesforce page with Looker visualizations embedded right into that Salesforce page, showing data outside of Salesforce right next to my sales data, like usage data, so I can make better decisions. Or the ability to build fully custom applications. So this is actually a fully custom portal that's leveraging Looker's APIs and iframe capabilities to build an external facing product for your customer that's going to look, act, and feel the way that you would want in a scalable way. We won't focus on this today, though. I just wanted to give a kind of quick taste on that. We can always do a deep dive there if anyone's interested. But really what I want to focus now is start from a front-end user experience from the dashboard and show some of the things that a user can do starting from there and going and self-serving and exploring. And I'm going to do it with this e-commerce data set, but of course we'll work with any data. It doesn't really matter what the actual underlying data is. At a high level here, this dashboard is really just giving a general view into our sales data. So what are our high-level metrics, users we're acquiring, sales trends year over year, customer demographics in terms of what our customers look like and who's spending the most with us, going into our web event data that we also have access to, conversion rates, which brands people are looking at, cohort analyses, retention analyses. Really, there's no limit to the types of analyses you can run with Looker. The important thing to keep in mind is that each of these widgets are actually live queries that are being run in real time. So if we think about something like an acquired user, for this e-commerce company, it may be a user that's, I don't know, maybe bought one item with that company. But for another company, maybe someone who's signed onto their website via their web event data. The idea of that definition is going to be different across various organizations, but that's a great example of something that would be defined in that data dictionary one time. And now you can ensure that across all your dashboards and schedules and really any data experience, no matter how people use that definition for an acquired user, it's always going to be that same logic. And so you can be sure that everything is correct. But you can also be sure that if you were ever to go change that definition for what an acquired user is, because of some new business rules in that data dictionary, it will propagate out in seconds to every single report and dashboard where it's being used. So really, as you go and make changes, like let's say I want to go and change a filter, what's happening in the back end is Looker's actually in real time rewriting these queries to reflect any model changes, if there are, like that change in acquired user definition, send those to the database and get the latest results. So the data is always real time and the data is always correct. Now, since people always ask, we do have caching mechanisms as well. So if you don't want to hit the database all the time, you don't need to, but by default, you always have access to that true real-time governed data. Now, so far, this is all pretty basic from the BI perspective, but what that access to the direct data set or database allows you to do is it allows you to really explore the data much further than just when you have a particular subset that you pull into an application. So I can hopefully really click on any widget and kind of surf my data the same way I would surf the web, for example. So if I was looking at this dashboard here and I was looking at brand performance and was interested in taking a deeper dive into Levi's because of their low cart to conversion rate, I can click on them here and I'll just open in a new tab and very quickly dive into my brand lookup dashboard. And what Looker will do is just take that field that I clicked on and automatically pass it as the filter for me. And very quickly now I can see all the information in terms of sales performance and trends for this particular brand, how many customers, categories, affinity analyses, web analytics, so on and so forth. The idea that I just created one version of this dashboard, and whenever I click on a brand, it will bring me here a filter for that brand. I may also have a user dashboard where whenever I click on a user, I can take a deep dive and see everything about that user, really minimizing the amount of reports you're creating and just clicking on things again, getting to the information that you need. And this can be drilling to different dashboards or external sites, but it can also be drilling into the row-level detail because we have access to all that row-level detail. It could be drilling into a collection of orders or even drilling in all the way to the click level of what people are doing on our website. So as an example, I could be looking here at orders by day and category and say, well, okay, I see a big spike in orders. I want to take a dive here and see what was happening. By clicking that, Looker is now going to fetch me the information for these 10 orders, and I now can understand maybe who was making these orders, what time, and what they ordered. But when you get this information, of course, it's great to actually get to the bottom of it, but I think really where it gets interesting is starting to integrate and implement some of those actionable insights into these reports. So maybe when I see an order, I actually want to be able to send this to a Slack channel to someone in my organization to take a look because the order says complete, but the customer reached out and said they never received it. Looker will send that data with a custom form to that Slack channel for my colleague to take a look at. Or I may want to create an order form that's automatically going to send this order information to my invoicing tool, have that order form created there for me. Now, from a customer perspective, I may see that a customer potentially hasn't purchased for us in a while, and I want to email them a marketing promotion. By clicking here, I can have a custom form appear and automatically send that data to my marketing tool, say Marketo, to send an email to that customer without ever leaving the dashboard. And as with everything, these are really just some examples. The way to think about this is any web-based tool that you use, where you're looking at data and then going to some other tool to perform some operational action, you can have these actions very easily built in so that whenever a customer's name appears or an order ID appears, you're able to just click that button and go trigger that process in another tool versus just analyzing the data. So far, we've really just stayed on the dashboard, and most users actually get a lot of value from just staying on the dashboard, drilling, taking action from what they see with the selection of kind of reports and accessing data in this way. But many users sometimes actually might want something that wasn't made available to them on that initial dashboard and want to start asking their own questions. And this is where the exploration environment comes into play. So I can go in there from scratch, or generally I'll see something on a dashboard like this data set and I'll want to learn something more. I can click on Explore on anything that's shown on that dashboard, and Looker will basically bring this data set into our self-service environment. Now, the self-service environment at face value probably looks like most analytics tool you're familiar with, where you have a list of fields on the left that you can use to ask your questions. But really what's happening here is each of these fields you see on the left-hand panel are defined in that data dictionary. And it's what's defined in the data dictionary that's basically defining what gets exposed back out to the end user. So you're now using that model to decide what fields users see. Maybe some users only see 5 fields and other users see 20 fields. How these fields are labeled, drop downs, hover over descriptions, and then most importantly, how they're defined. So some may be very basic. If I click on cost, it's just going to query the cost column in my database. But some may be really complex fields like stock coverage ratios or retention analyses that I've just saved once into the model, and now my user has it packaged up as a field that they could use in any which way they want, and Looker will incorporate that into the query that it's sending to the database. So to see some examples, maybe for these orders, something basic, I just wanted to know what the gross margin was. I would click on that field. Gross margin, the calculation is defined in the model. Looker is going to run whatever the latest calculation is for gross margin, and I have the real-time information that Looker's fetching from the database that I can then visualize, schedule, download, add back to my dashboard. And this is how most users probably get value from the Explorer, just very quickly getting a piece of information that they were missing on their dashboard and they explore the full data that they have access to. But of course, a lot of users maybe just want to come and build things from scratch. And really, this is where you have access to these fields, and you basically have pivot table-like functionality, but on your entire data set with complex fields that have been set for you ahead of time. So maybe I want to start with something simple and get the total revenue, for the entire year across my organization. For an end user, they now have their revenue number. Great, they can add it to their dashboard. From a backend perspective, and this SQL tab would be hidden for most end users, but really for developers to see exactly what SQL Looker's writing in real time, Looker is actually going to use whatever I clicked on in the front end to generate dialect-specific, efficient SQL that it's going to send to the database. So this is actually what it's sending to the database in real time, only pulling in the fields or tables that are actually necessary for the question being asked. Now, as I go and start pulling in other fields, let's say I actually want to see this by the date that it was ordered, only filter for the past 30 days. Again, the end user is getting their information that they can visualize, but Looker is building this query in real time to add the date information, do whatever conversions, do any types of conversions. And of course, the more complex these queries get, the more valuable this is going to become. Maybe I actually want to see this pivoted on some cohort like age tier. I can come in here and pivot this. Again, I have my information by age tier. I can visualize it. What's happening now is the SQL is getting more and more complex. But really the thing to keep in mind is that no one ever had to write this query. All we define in the model is what are age tiers, what is the definition for the total sale price, and what is our date field. And Looker's taking care of all that repeatable pieces of SQL and allowing our end user to basically become these SQL writers without even needing to really understand what's in the data. And our analysts being comfortable that whatever's coming out the other side is going to be correct because it's being based off of their data model. Once I get my visualization, this, to us, most analytics tools will have visualizations today. It's all about how quickly can I get to that visualization and get the data I need. But of course, once you do have your visualization, you can go and edit the visualization if I wanted to stack it on top of each other or change the colors, any of that. You can share that. I mean, my favorite way to share is actually just through the URL. You can send this over to someone, and as long as they have the correct permissions, it'll open. If you have permissions set up, maybe it'll just filter down to the data they need to see. That'll all happen automatically. You can add it back to your dashboard as a widget, download it, as I mentioned before, or actually just use our scheduler to schedule it out of the application into other workflows. So when people think of scheduling, obviously the most obvious way is email. So I can schedule this to email on some cadence or via some alert-based mechanism, and we send this to an email if something were to happen. But basically, I can send data to really any other tool that I'm using. So you see a few examples here: send this to Slack, send this to Jira, to Marketo, or maybe even put in Google Sheets because that's how people want to consume that particular data set. But using webhooks, you can really send data to any other application you're using. So it maybe doesn't make as much sense for this particular visualization, which is just showing sales by age and date. But you can imagine actually going to that Explore session and just clicking on customer name and saying, hey, get me a name and IDs of all the customers that have not spent more than $10 with us in the past month. And have Looker return that list. And then basically send that data to another tool and say, every Monday, return to me that list and send that list of customers to Marketo to automatically kickstart a marketing campaign on those customers. Or in a more operational sense, maybe you're a support team that wants to return a list of all tickets that have been unattended to for more than 5 days, and then send those tickets automatically to Jira to automatically reassign owners or create those tickets in Jira. So you can have Looker do that programmatically. We talked about the ad example before, where maybe instead of doing it on cadence, I can have for every ad the programmatic threshold that Looker will constantly check, and if an ad's ROI ever drops below X%, Looker will send that ad ID to Google Ads or your ad platform to automatically pause that campaign or lower your ad spend. And these are really the types of use cases where we're leveraging the model, the architecture, the direct access to data to move past just simple reporting in BI and sort of trigger those high value operational workflows that are saving time at the user level, but also at the organization level. So as a last step here, everything I focus now is more on the front end. We won't dive too much into the back end model for now, but I'll quickly show what we're talking about here in terms of data dictionary. And really the only people that would be coming in here are analysts, and the only prerequisite to be building this model is knowledge of SQL. You no longer have to be a database engineer to come and test new fields out. Anyone can come in here, add a new field, and it's available for everyone to use. When you connect to the database, what's going to happen is Looker will actually generate this collection of text files for every table for you based off of what lives in your data. And really all it is just virtual little snippets of SQL so that Looker knows how to access your data, how to join tables together, so that you don't have to keep redefining those fields. So when it first generates, it's just going to define everything as what is the SQL to access this field? It's column name, table name, column name, sorry. So if anyone ever uses ID, it always will be the SQL. You then have the ability, of course, to define transformations if you need to clean up data very quickly without having to physically go clean it up in the database. But more importantly, define brand new fields. So we talked about gross margin before. Gross margin doesn't actually exist in our database, but there's a sale price field. I'm going to come and add a new field that's gross margin, that's sale price minus the cost of inventory items. Looker will now know to use this sale price field, will know to join the right information to get inventory items cost. And now that's that. I never actually have to define gross margin again. It's reusable by any of my users or applications, and this definition will always be the same. And really that's it. You're just defining little snippets that are reusable by other users and applications. And the only time you're actually ever coming back to the model once it's built out is you want to add a new field that's never been thought of before. Sure, you can actually go in the front end and create a little calculated field as an end user. But if it's going to be used more than once, you can just come in here, define it, and basically now never have to go and redefine that field. The second time you come back is if you want to change a field. Instead of having to go into every single report and make that update, I would just come in here and say, well, actually, the definition of gross margin is now something new. Change it here, and it would just propagate to everywhere where it's being used. So it makes it very easy, again, to push those changes out. And I mentioned before, it's all text-based, leveraging software development practices. So fully version control through Git. It's completely taken care of for you, and you can work on this at the same time, ensure that there's no conflicting definitions or changes. and basically allow this model to be reusable, portable, because it's just a bunch of text files versus actually physically modeling the data. With that, I will end that product demo. So, thank you everyone for listening. I think really the things to take home is that the Looker platform is, again, really built in a way that you can empower new data experiences. We have a lot of different examples that we can walk through in more in-depth demos if that was ever of interest. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and I really appreciate you taking the time.